You're in the water and something brushes your leg. Barely anything. Less than a mosquito bite. You don't even really register it. You keep swimming, dry off, maybe get lunch. 20 minutes later, you're doubled over in a car park, absolutely convinced you're either dying or being murdered by your own back muscles. And you cannot, for the life of you, connect it to the thing that felt like nothing half an hour ago. That's Irukandji syndrome. And here's the detail that should genuinely unsettle you. The jellyfish responsible is about the size of your thumbnail. Not a metaphor, an actual average human thumbnail. It is, without much competition, one of the most disproportionately dangerous animals on the planet. And there's a real chance you'd never even see the one that got you. So here's where we're going. What does this thing's venom actually do to make an entire human body malfunction like that? Why does it take so long to show up? And why did the man who first proved all of this decide the best way to test his theory was on himself? Let's start with what we're actually talking about. The species most reliably linked to this is Carukia barnesi, a box jellyfish so small its bell is about 12 millimeters across. For comparison, something roughly the diameter of a chickpea with 4 trailing tentacles is capable of putting a grown adult in intensive care. It's nearly transparent, drifts through tropical waters across northern Australia, Southeast Asia, Hawaii, and parts of the Caribbean. And by every reasonable measure, it is extremely easy to not notice, which, as you're about to hear, is precisely the problem. A handful of close relatives, Malo kingi, Malo maxima, a few others, do essentially the same thing in other regions, and new ones are still being formally identified, mostly because almost nobody's especially eager to go catch one on purpose. So who actually figured out this tiny thing was the culprit? For decades, doctors around Cairns, Australia, kept seeing the same bizarre pattern. Swimmers coming out of the water completely fine, then collapsing later with agonizing pain and dangerously high blood pressure, with no visible sting mark to explain any of it. Nobody could prove what was causing it. In 1964, a scientist named Jack Barnes had a theory. A nearly invisible little jellyfish was responsible, and the reason nobody could catch it in the act was that the sting itself barely registers. His method for confirming this was, let's say, efficient. He caught one of the jellyfish, stung himself with it, then to rule out a fluke, his own 9-year-old son, and for a third data point, a nearby lifeguard, who, as far as the historical record shows, had not exactly volunteered for this. All 3 ended up in the hospital. Barnes got his proof. The syndrome carries his name to this day, which is either a great scientific legacy or a cautionary tale about informed consent, depending on how you want to look at it. So what's actually happening inside you, chemically, once that sting lands? Nobody's fully mapped Irukandji venom yet. It's an active area of research, partly because the jellyfish are so small and fragile that just handling one for study is its own challenge. But the leading theory is that the venom acts on sodium channels in your nerve endings and triggers something called a catecholamine storm, a massive, uncontrolled dump of adrenaline and noradrenaline into your bloodstream. That's the mechanism in one sentence. This jellyfish doesn't really poison you in the way most venomous animals do. It hijacks your own fight-or-flight system and cranks it to a setting your body was never built to survive. Blood pressure spikes to genuinely dangerous levels. Readings as high as 280 over 180 have been recorded in real cases, which is well into stroke territory. Your heart races. In the worst cases, that pressure spike can trigger pulmonary edema, fluid building up in the lungs, or bleeding inside the brain. Here's the detail that makes it genuinely disturbing. One of the most consistently reported symptoms across decades of documented cases is an overwhelming, specific feeling of impending doom. Not generalized anxiety. Patients describe a certainty that they are about to die. It's such a reliable, specific symptom that doctors actually use it as a diagnostic clue when they're trying to work out what's wrong with someone. So does that feeling turn out to be right? Usually no. Most people survive Irukandji syndrome, if pretty unpleasantly. Think a couple of days in hospital, not a graveside service, but not always. There's a documented case in the medical literature of a fatality from intracranial hemorrhage, directly attributed to the syndrome's blood pressure spike in a patient stung in the Whitsundays. Confirmed deaths from Irukandji syndrome are genuinely rare. But here's the twist worth sitting with. When it does kill someone, it's often not really the venom doing it directly. It's your own cardiovascular system pushed into a level of overdrive it was never designed to survive. So why doesn't this thing get anywhere near the reputation of, say, a box jellyfish? By raw death toll, Irukandji syndrome is nowhere close to the deadliest thing this channel has covered. But by sheer psychological wrongness, it might take the crown. A box jellyfish sting hurts immediately, and obviously, you know exactly what happened and exactly when. Irukandji breaks that entire model. You could be showered, dressed, and halfway through a sandwich before your body tells you something's seriously wrong, with zero connection in your head to the barely there tingle from half an hour earlier. It's a threat with a delay button, and nothing about how humans are wired to detect danger accounts for that. It's also small enough to slip past exactly the safety measure people trust the most. Beach stinger nets across northern Australia are built to keep out the large, visible box jellyfish, and they generally do their job. But something the size of a chickpea can often drift straight through the same mesh that's supposedly protecting the swimming area. The net gives you a false sense that the water's been cleared. So if you're anywhere this thing lives, what do you actually do? If you're stung, or even just suspect you might have been, treat it seriously. Even if it genuinely feels like nothing. Get out of the water. Douse the area generously with vinegar to stop any unfired nematocysts from injecting more venom. The same first response as a full-size box jellyfish sting. Then, regardless of how mild it seems in the moment, get to a hospital or call emergency services, and don't leave the area for at least 30 minutes to be monitored. That window is exactly when this thing tends to flip from barely felt it to a genuine emergency. There is no anti-venom for Irukandji syndrome. Treatment in hospital is entirely about managing what your own body is doing to itself. Strong pain relief, medication to bring blood pressure down before it causes real damage, and in some trialed cases, intravenous magnesium. With that kind of supportive care, most people recover completely within a day or two. A jellyfish smaller than your thumbnail can put a healthy adult in intensive care and briefly, sincerely convince them they're about to die. It does this with a sting so mild that most victims don't even believe at first that it's the actual cause. That's not really a jellyfish story. That's a story about how easy it is to miss the thing that's actually dangerous, right up until it isn't. So, be honest. If you'd felt that tingle in the water, would you have even mentioned it to anyone? Tell me in the comments.